Next, we're going to add in our internal walls. If we go to our wall tool, we can just go to our type selector and change the type. So if we just scroll down to wall partition, 12 plasterboard, 70mm stud, and 12 plasterboard. Again, if you now open up the PDF 004 internal walls, you can follow along. First off, I'm going to go to my gridline C. My drawing method will be by line, constrained to height, first floor. My location on, I'm going to leave on for wall center line for now. Chain, yes, so go from the center point of that column directly across and attach to the outer face. As you can see in the PDF, all of those walls are equally spaced between each other. So what we can do is just hover over the edge of that wall and we'll get a triangle, which is our midpoint. And same again, once we get the triangle, it's the midpoint. So they're all equally spaced. We can go to the right-hand side. So with the Revit, what we want to do is we just want to place everything first, and then afterwards we can come back and position it with more accuracy. So I'm just going to draw in roughly where I think everything is. Like so. And then afterwards, then I can go in and make sure that those dimensions are correct. So first one here, the distance from the face of that plasterboard on the external wall to the face of the plasterboard of the partition is 2,100. So if I select my partition because I want to move my partition, if I select the external wall, my external wall will move. So I'll select my partition, the temporary dimension will appear, and you can see there it's 2,137.5. So to adjust its position, I'll select the text, change it to 2100 and press enter. So this wall here is at the center point, same here. And so these walls here are 2000 down. So if I select my middle wall, you can see my temporary dimension is 2302.5. If your temporary dimension is snapping to the column like so, we can adjust its position. So with that blue grip, I'll click, drag, and move it up to the face of the plasterboard and let go. Now I can change the text to 2000. And to change this wall down here, if I now enter 2000 here, it's going to move the wall that's highlighted. So you got to make sure that you select the correct wall before you move it. So I'm going to undo that. Now that we want to move this wall, I'll select this wall here. And now I'll change my temporary dimension. And click away. So next, I want to do this nice curved wall here. So to do that, I'm just going to, again, just roughly draw in the walls where I think they belong. And there's another one there. So draw on those nice straight walls. Afterwards, we can add in those curves. So the first thing is the distance between the vertical partition and the external wall. You can see that it's set to 2800, 2800. So I can go to my temporary dimensions, change that to 2800. Because then I just want to get that curve between the two walls. So go to our wall tool, select fitted arc, select the two walls. If we get that warning symbol, if we just go across to the other side, we can place it and it will generate on the other side. Once it's placed, we can then select it and change the radius, which is 2200. We'll do the same for the bottom. And select 2200. And that's how we generate those nice curves. So with our partitions on grid line C here, we can see that the partition is cutting right into the brick and going to the blockwork. Again, the reason for this is because of our wall boundaries. So the metal stud in between here has its own boundaries, as well as our block work, so that two boundaries connecting to each other. So the brick is completely ignored, as well as the plasterboard for our partition. So in the real world, this isn't going to happen. We're not going to have a metal stud cutting right through a brick. So what we can do is we can disallow the join of that wall and pull it back. So what we'll do is we'll select the wall and right click on the grip. And there we have disallow join. And then we'll just click and drag the grip away and attach it to the face of the brickwork. This little symbol here is the joining symbol. So if I ever wanted them to rejoin, I'll just click and it will rejoin. Okay, so next we're going to place the architectural columns around the left-hand side of the building. So if we go to the build panel, drop down now of the column, we'll go to architectural. If you go to the type selector, you'll see we only have 3 different types to choose from. So what we need to do is we need to load in the other columns from the library. So this library, when we download the software, is automatically installed on your PC. And all of these components aren't automatically in every single drawing because the file size would be too big. So there's an external library of all the different components that we will load in from. To access that, we'll click on the Load Family. We're in the green contextual tab of our architectural column. We'll select on Load Family. So this will open up our UK library. And there we have our columns folder. And in there you can see our different types of columns that we can select. The one we're choosing today is the metal clad. Press open to bring from the library into the project and then just click to place. Once we have one placed, we'll place it more accurately, again using the temporary dimensions. If you refer to the PDF 005 external columns, this is where you'll find the positions of each of the columns. So from the face, we have it at 1000. And from the lower face, again, it's 1000. So again, all I'm doing is clicking on the blue grip, dragging it down to where I want it to be, reselect, change it to 1000. So center to center, it's 1000 to each face. And you'll notice on the PDF that we have 4 columns in total along the top half here. So just now click on the column, use the copy tool. I'm going to click above it just as my start point. And having multiple selected, every time I click, I'll place a new column. Now that I have the 4 placed, all I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the position of the last column. And as you'll see in the PDF, it's a meter away from each face. So this temporary dimension here is latching on here. So what I'll do is click the blue grip, click and drag until I get the blue line on the external face and let go. And that is 1000. And it should automatically be 1000 from here as well. So I don't know what the position is between each of the columns, but with Revit, I'm able to equally space them anyway. So in Revit, there's a feature that I'm able to use, which is called the quality constraint, and I can use that feature to equally space the columns. So how I'll do that is I'll use my aligned dimension tool. So I'm going to go up to the quick access panel at the top, select align dimensions. And because I want my dimension one to go along the horizontal axis, when I hover over the column, I've got to pick up that vertical blue line. If I go for the horizontal blue line, I'm going to go down to make a vertical dimension one. So because I want to do a horizontal dimension one, I look for the vertical blue line on the center point. So click once to get my center point, click again for the next one. Remaining in the dimension tool, I click again for the next center point, click again for the next column. Once I've done all 4, I'll move my cursor up to position. Then to place the dimension, I'll just move away, making sure I'm not highlighting anything. Like if I click now because that's blue, I'll make a new dimension, so I don't want to do that. So I'll just move my cursor away and click again when nothing is selected. And that's my dimension one placed. So it's giving me dimensions between each of the columns. And now to equally space them, there's an EQ with the red dash. If I click that, it will equally space the columns. Now we don't want this on our plans all the time, so what we can do is we can select it, clicking the delete key. By doing this, we'll get a warning, a dialog box. It's just saying we've deleted the dimension one, but do we still want it to remain constrained? I.e., do we want it to remain equally spaced or not? So we can keep it constrained by pressing OK, or we can click on unconstrained, which means that the columns are free to move now and they won't be equally spaced. So I want to keep them constrained, so I'll press OK. Next, we'll do the vertical run. So on the vertical run, we have a total of 8 columns. So I'll select one. And here's my copy tool. And again, just copy down 8 times. So I got 1, 2, and 8. So next, it's about positioning the last column correctly. So yes, it's a meter from this face here, but it is 1900 from this face. So using the blue grip, just click and drag and place it on the external face there. I can change that to 1900. And now that I have the position of the last one, I can use the same align dimension tool. Because I'm doing a vertical distance, and I have to get a horizontal blue line. So there's my vertical, there's my horizontal. Again, just clicking once to place, using my wheel on the mouse to pan. And once I've got the last one, just moving the dimensions in the correct position, move the cursor away from any other object so it won't select, and left click with the mouse. So I select the dimension one, there's an EQ, click to place, and I will equally space the columns. Again, once I delete the dimension, I get the warning dialog box again, I'll press OK. And next, I just need to copy down those 3 from above. So if I select one, hold down the Control key to select the other 2. And I can have copy and paste. Now our project is starting to take shape. We have our levels, our grids. We've set our external walls, internal walls, and some additional architectural columns. Next, we're going to create a floor at the ground floor level. So to get started, again, we're in the Architecture tab, the Build panel. Here we have our floor tool. If I hit the drop down arrow, you'll see a couple of different types. Or we can use our architectural, which is what we're going to use today. Structural is not something we cover in this course, and the other 2 as well. So we'll simply just click on the icon itself, and it will bring us into the Create Floor boundary. You'll see again the contextual tab changes. First, you'll notice in the first panel there, it's our mode panel. We have a red X and a green tick. So this will appear with certain components, like when we place any floors, any roofs, and so on. Basically, what this means is when we are finished, we have to either select the red X to cancel what we've done, or the green tick to continue and to finish, that we're happy with what we've drawn. You cannot move forward unless you select either one of those 2. So that's very important to remember. Next, we have the boundary line. And again, there's a draw panel, which we're familiar with by now. Again, drawing by line, rectangle, circle, and so on. Again, we have the pick lines. And we now also have this new tool, which is called a pick walls. It's best practice to use the pick walls tool, because by using this tool, all we have to do is select each one of the walls to create our floor boundary. And what it will do is it will look for the boundary of the wall itself. So the floor will cut through the blockwork and so on and go to the external face. This will become more apparent when we draw our floor and I'll cut a section through to see that happen. There in the options bar, we can create an offset and the extend into wall, into the core. We'll have that ticked on. Again, what that is, when we create the floor, it will extend in through the wall and attach to the core itself. So what we're going to do is we're going to change over our floor type. We hit the type selector. By default, we'll have 4 different types, 2 ground floors and 2 upper. So if we go for the first one, the ground bearing slab, having the pick walls tool active, and then most simply just click on the walls. And escape once to finish. So what we've drawn is our boundary line represented by that pink line. So the boundary line must contain a closed loop representing the outside perimeter of the floor. It can also contain other closed loops which define openings in the floor. It is very important to remember though that we must have one single closed loop, so we can't have any additional lines or anything like that. I will show you that in a few moments. So as you see here, we have a single closed line running around, and then these 3 lines here are in fact additional lines. So if I press green tick to finish, I'll get a warning symbol here telling me that I cannot complete it because the lines cannot intersect each other. The highlighted lines can intersect it. So whatever we'll do is we'll highlight the problem lines as orange so you can just zoom in straight away to see where the problem is. So to fix the problem, we'll just press continue. And what we need to do is cut out this intersection. And I will use the split element tool for that. So select split element in the modify panel. And to save myself time, I'm going to click on delete inner segment. And then when I hover over where I want to cut, you'll see how the cursor will kind of jump and attach to it. And once I can see that happen, I'll just click once to start. Click again. It has created the opening. And escape once to finish. Now we have one single closed loop, which when I press green tick, the software is happy with that. And we can continue on. Escape again to finish. So if I then further wanted to edit my floor, as you can see when I hover over, I cannot select it. The reason being is down here in the selection mode, my select elements by face is turned off. So if I turn that on, now I can select the face of the floor. Once it's selected, in my property section, I can change the type. I can change the constraint if I want. But I also have the option here of editing the boundary. So if I click on that, I'm back into the editor. And if I zoom in, we can see the pink line running on the outside of the blockwork, which is the core face exterior. So if I wanted to change the location on that line, I can simply select it once. And only with the pick roll tool will I be given this flip arrows here. So I click on the flipping arrow, it will jump to the inner face of the core boundary, and I can hit the arrows again to flip it back out. We can also adjust its position using the temporary dimension there. So I get that 100, I can pull it up to the inner face of the brickwork. So to bring it back, I can just click and drag back to the exterior face and green tick to finish. So what I'm going to do is turn off select elements by face. The reason being I can accidentally click on a floor slab, which can get in the way. So if I turn that off, so next what we're going to do is we're going to place another floor slab, but it'll be our boundary path. So we're going to create a footpath around the building. We are going to use the same floor slab as we've done for the inner part of the building. Later on in the course, I'm going to show you how we can change the properties of that floor slab. So we'll just display a concrete slab. For now though, we're going to leave it as the default ground floor bearing slab. So same process, we're going to click on the floor tool. This time, I'm going to use the pick line. And I'm going to go around the outside of the building. And again, we'll have to remove this segment here. So we'll use the split element. Again, having delete inner segment turned on. Click and click. So that's the inner side of the footpath. We now have to draw the outer side to create our footpath. You can also open up the PDF 007 path. So the path itself is going to be an offset of 2 meters from the inner boundary. So if we use the offset tool in the modified panel, and we can change the offset number to 2000, pressing enter. And what I'm going to do is just simply hitting the top, right, bottom, and left. I'm not going to do each individual segment. The reason being, I'm going to use my trim and extend to just tidy up those corners, just saving myself a bit of time. Now that we have the outer boundary drawn, we're going to do a small fillet on the top right and bottom left-hand corner of our path. So to do that, I'm just going to go back to my draw panel, and we're going to select the fillet arc. And we can just select the 2 lines that will automatically generate that fillet. You can try and get it to 5,000, or you can simply click to place and afterwards come back, select the curve, change it to 5,000. We can also select the fillet by arc, go to the options bar, turn on the radius, change it to 5,000. So now when we select the 2 lines, then the bottom left-hand corner, it'll automatically generate that. So now we have our outer boundary drawn and our inner boundary drawn. We just have to press green tick to finish. There's our footpath around the boundary. So you can go to your 3D view and you can pan around in orbit to see what we've drawn. Again, you can select the outer footpath and the inner floor. The next component we're going to look at are doors. So open the build panel. Beside wall, we have the door tool. So if we select our door tool, again, you'll see our contextual tablet appear. The green tab at the top. We have our panels here. First is the mode, which is the load family. Again, that load family will just bring us into the library on our common drive. Model in place isn't something we're going to cover in this course. And last is the tag on placement. So every time we place a door, it will automatically tag each door. Tagging is something we'll cover later on in this course. The options bar there is referring to our tags. So this is how we can manipulate our tags. So if we go into our properties palette, first thing we have our type selector. And by default, we have 2 doors loaded into the project. First one is an external door type. The second is an internal door type, simply represented by EXT for external and INT for internal. In the properties palette itself, there's just some basic information about the constraints. So the sill height of the door, we want it to be 00, so it's on our ground floor level. The construction type, what materials and finishes are on that door. We could add in some comments about that door itself. We'll go into a lot more detail about this later on in our course. Here we can also specify our head height. So to get started, we're going to go to our type selector. We're going to select the 910 by 2110 door. So click. And we'll move into the drawing. And we're going to place our first door here on grid line C. So as you see, my cursor has the warning symbol because I cannot place a door randomly in the project. Doors as well as windows must be hosted on a wall. Certain components must be hosted on certain other components. Like when we put in lights, they'll only be hosted in ceilings. So if I hover my cursor over my wall, you'll see the door will appear. If I move my cursor below the wall itself, you'll see the door handling will change. And as well to place it, if I go left and right, you'll see the temporary dimensions will change. So how close do I want it to be to the adjacent partition? So again, on Revit, the best thing to do is just place it first and come back afterwards to adjust it. So now that the door is placed, if I click again to select it, you'll see we have our temporary dimensions, both sides. As well, we have two different flipping arrows. You can change the handing like so. So we're going to place each of the doors 200 from the adjacent partition. If we wanted to do some minor adjustments to the door position, we can use our arrow keys. So I'm just going left, right on the arrow keys on the keyboard. To be more accurate, use those temporary dimensions. So next, we're going to open up the 008 doors PDF. And we can start to place the door 910 by 2110 around that project. They're represented by the number 1. So we have two ways now we can go back to insert those doors. We can either select the door, use our create similar, or we can also use our door tool and it's the last selected, so we can just go and place. It's best to just place the doors and then afterwards we'll come back and adjust their position. So once we have all of those 910 doors placed, we'll then just place them more accurately. So yeah, 200. I'm going to need to flip this door. $200 again. So while I select this door and I flip it, you'll notice the temporary dimensions also flip. So to get the temporary dimension that I want, I just press escape, select the door again, and then my correct temporary dimension will appear. And the same for here. We can also select it, use our mirror, pick axis, and flip it to the other side. So now we have all of our 910 doors in the project.